Exactly that. There's a sort of anticipation in the air here, although there is generally with the Ashes starting just next week. You must be excited.
Well, yes. I mean, the Ashes. Why do we all look at the Ashes? The Ashes were, as it were, invented when they I think it was 82 when England, 1882, lost to Australia at the Oval, and a notice, a fake death notice was put in the London Sporting Times, lamenting the death of English cricket and saying that the body would be burnt and the Ashes taken to Australia. And then the Honourable Ivo Bligh, who later became Lord Darnley, captained Kent, and captained that England side to Australia, and they had a 3-test tour, and when England had won it 2-1, some spirited young ladies called Clark, with an E on the end, not that matters, who lived at Sunbury, which is near Tullamarine Airport in Melbourne, burned some bales and got an urn and put the Ashes into the urn and presented it to Ivo Bligh as our present, and he brought them home. And they stayed for a very long time in Cobham Hall, where the Bligh family lived. And there was the story then that a zealous housemaid one day dusting knocked the Ashes urn on the floor, and it broke apart. It didn't completely come apart, but it opened. And when the butler came in a bit later, he was horrified, and he saw some grey substance there. So he scooped that back with some ashes from the fireplace, and then closed it up again. And it's never been opened, and I hope it never is opened. So we never know exactly what's inside. But then the Darnley family gave it as a present to Lords, which is why it is Lords' own possession, and it's not something that is put up. England and Australia don't play for the urn. It always stays at Lords and goes on the very occasional, like it's been twice, state visit to Australia under heavy guard, and then returns as quick as it can to London NW8.
Wonderful.
And but I mean, it's the most romantic sporting sort of trophy. Although, as I say, although Australia have the Ashes at the moment, they don't sort of pick them up and take them home. They don't physically have them.
So how does the preparation start for you? I mean, you must be looking at squads and doing your research on players that are emerging into the squad. Don't tell me you don't prepare.
No, I don't. I mean, I know the Australian side. I watched them in the last 2 winters in Australia. I watched them over here when they were last here in 2012. I know the Australians pretty well. And now, actual fact, some of the English I would probably know less well than the Australians. One obviously knows who's playing, and I know a bit about them, and reads a little bit. But I mean, I'll drive down to Cardiff on Tuesday, and we're staying at a hotel with all the other commentators, and we'll get there, and then the next day off it'll go. We'll walk early to the ground.
What time do you arrive at the ground?
I always like, play starts at 11, I always like to get there at 9 o'clock or soon afterwards.
Right.
Just to sort of get to know, feel comfortable, one wants to remember what the two ends of the ground are called, who the umpires are, you know, what the sides are. The sides have to be announced before the toss. And you need to get all that sort of thing into your mind, so that when you are on the air, you can be reasonably fluent and reasonably accurate. Although I'm probably rather known more for my colour than my accuracy, I'm ashamed to say. But that's the way it is, and that probably tells you a lot about me.
Well, it was lovely, always lovely to hear you on the radio. It's been something of a resurgence this year. I mean, coming back from Australia, we spoke shortly after you were back, and it was all sort of doom and gloom as far as England's cricket was concerned.
Well, it is extraordinary. There's been a sea change. I mean, England lost the Ashes series 5-0 2 years ago in Australia. They were humiliated in the World Cup. They didn't even get to the finals, the last rounds. And then they went to the West Indies and drew a series 1-1, which they should have won. When they came back, Peter Moores, the coach, who had been reinstated after a rather bad first term, and he fell out with Kevin Peterson. And he didn't prompt England to play the right sort of cricket. He went. Then New Zealand came and played 2 tests here, 2 great test matches, and both of which went to the wire. England won the first at Lords, New Zealand the second at Headingley. And under the management, or the coach, if you like, coaching of Paul Fabres, who was number 2 to Moores. And Fabres is obviously a considerable coach. He's got a great reputation. And I think he did an awful lot in that short time. The authorities at Lords then decided to go for Trevor Bayliss, the Australian, to make him the official coach rather than Jason Gillespie, who has coached Yorkshire so well. And I think the reason for that was that England have been very embarrassed by that total lack of ability to play one-day cricket in any way at all. They never won the World Cup, and so I think that was why Bayliss got it. I don't know him, but everyone who has met him says he's absolutely marvellous and he will be a great choice. And in fact, in the last week, the entire England squad have been away in a sort of boot camp for 4 days in Spain, getting to know Bayliss, and I'm sure that will be of great benefit to anyone. And it's always difficult for a coach taking over, but I think he's the sort of chap, I gather, whose feet are very firmly on the ground. And I think he and Fabres have worked well together running Sri Lankan cricket, both in the Test arena and the one-day game. Bayliss has won, I think, 2 IPLs with the Kolkata side, and he's also won the Big Bash in Australia with New South Wales, I think.
So he knows how to win.
So he does know how to win. I think the thing has changed, that England are going into this series, and they won't be half as easy to beat as Australia thought, and indeed they were last time. I think England will go to 5, it'll take Australia at least 5 days to beat them rather than 3. And I think, of course, Australia have got to worry. They are a dad's army in cricketing terms. They've got a lot of injury. Ryan Harris is already out of cricket for good. We know this the last 2 or 3 days. A wonderful bowler. They've got Johnson, they've got Clark, they've got Watson, Haddin, Siddle, Rogers, one go on and on, all of whom are in cricketing old age, well into their 30s. You've got 5 back-to-back Test matches, all over in 6 weeks. If they do get injured early on, they aren't going to recover in time, because when you're that age, your body doesn't get fit, does it?
It does take longer.
I mean, I know, Scott, you're an exception.
Athlete that I am.
Well, I know.
So if I was to ask you 2 things, then you're going to be at the ground. What do you say a little prayer for if you're an England fan? 2 captains are out in the middle. The weather's going to be much like this. Division under the day, I can't say. You almost certainly want to bat first. I mean, you don't bowling then bat.
You don't put the other side in the first Test match. So England are going to want not to go into the Test match for a draw, but they want to get out of Cardiff not having lost. I hope they play right from the word go for a victory, because that's the best way of avoiding defeat. But what they don't want to do is leave Cardiff with Australia 1 up. If they do that, the series could run badly away from them. If they can get through Cardiff and survive, or even win, then I think we're going to see a very different Ashes series from what we feared. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if England didn't win by the end.
And I think there's a chance, if they do play the sort of cricket they did against New Zealand, the whole country will get behind them the way they did last time we won the Ashes here, which was very
I think there is a funny quirk to this. New Zealand have stolen the moral high ground. We've been in a series of no sledging, and besides drinking in the dressing rooms after each day's cricket. The Australians, I think, may find this is something up with which they will not put. We had Brad Haddin making rather aggressive statements in an interview in the papers the other day, and saying it'll be business as usual, and the Australians will get out their swords. I don't know, it's going to be interesting, and I think, but you see, Australia's never taken the least notice of New Zealand cricket. New Zealand came on song in the early 30s, the Test playing country. It wasn't until the first Test after the war in late 45 that Australia played 1 single Test match against them. That was in Auckland, I think it was, and they played as a one-off game. And they've always been a little bit contemptuous and patronising about New Zealand cricket, just round the corner, the little brother. And to find now that the agenda for the summer has been partially, at any rate, set by the New Zealanders, I don't think will make them entirely happy. So, I think there's an awful lot that lies ahead. I think it'll be great value. And let's hope that the weather is not going to get into the way of it all.
Well, we've got to go off for lunch now, but here's to a great summer, and a great Ashes summer at that for the time being. Henry Blofeld, lovely chat.
Thank you, Scott. Lovely.